our imagination soar with history and legend immortalized by poet Alfred Lord Tennyson, who was born this day, August 6, 1809. The son of a clergyman, he not only brought to life Guinevere and Sir Lancelot, but wrote The Charge of the Light Brigade, recording the courage of the British cavalry as they rode to their deaths fighting the Russians. Honored by Queen Victoria as Poet Laureate, Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote, "Cast all your cares on God, that anchor holds."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Friends, thank you for joining us on Crosstalk, coming your way from the VCY American Network. Tomorrow will mark 10 months. 10 months since a very horrendous, barbaric attack was launched by the Iran-backed Hamas against Israel. Israel then declared war on Hamas to root out those who were seeking to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Now, these many months later, Israel is on high alert as Iran's Ayatollah has ordered such an attack on Israel. We're going to be discussing the escalating tensions in the Middle East, but first comment and have some discussion on the running mate chosen this morning by Vice President Kamala Harris. Joining us today in studio, we welcome back Dr. Richard Schmidt, pastor of Union Grove Baptist Church, founder of Prophecy Focus Ministries. He is a speaker on the weekly TV program Prophecy Focus, the radio broadcast Prophecy Unfolding. After some 32 years in law enforcement and that of acting sheriff, he has authored numerous books. Are You Going to a Better Place? Daniel's Gap, Paul's Mystery, Tribulation to Triumph, The Olivet Discourse, Globalism, The Great World Consumption, and Artificial Intelligence, Transhumanism, and the De-Evolution of Democracy. Dr. Schmidt, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this broadcast.
So this morning we have Vice President Harris announcing her running mate, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. I saw Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, called this the most pro-abortion presidential ticket America has ever seen. What is your response to this announcement?
Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't surprise me. I was actually somewhat shocked, I guess, that she didn't choose Shapiro. But once you started looking at the anti-Israeli rhetoric and the anti-Semitism that appears to be part of the Democratic platform, it's not surprising now that they switched from who was the front runner to Tim Walz. So it's pushing the socialist agenda on steroids at this point. And there's not going to be any doubt about it. When you look at the two tickets between the Republicans and the Democrats, there's going to be a very, very clear line drawn here as to who's going to be on the literally a conservative, pro-American side versus those that are looking at the globalist agenda, specifically making America a socialist group. So I think the lines have been drawn.
I know the Daily Signal pointed out today that Governor Walz is very popular with the far left. For instance, earning the praise of Senator Bernie Sanders, Representative Jayapal, and others. Nancy Pelosi called him a wonderful choice. They also indicate that Governor Walz issued an executive order ensuring that Minnesota children may be able to obtain irreversible transgender surgeries and sterilizing hormone treatments that proponents call gender-affirming care. He's been a very strong advocate for this to take place.
Well, again, this should alarm anyone that has any type of a conservative background. The current ticket now for the Democratic Party is basically how to ruin the family, how to ruin children, how to destroy law and order, and they're basically going to a lawless, anti-God, anti-biblical world philosophy. So, again, they are clearly stating their agenda. It's clearly against what we would call a biblical worldview, and it really is. It's disappointing that our country is even considering a ticket that's going to go in that direction.
Well, friends, we, Lord willing, will have more discussion on this on tomorrow's program. Dr. Schmidt, we're going to turn our attention to Israel, and tensions are as great as ever as Iran's Ayatollah has ordered an attack on Israel. Iran's parliament speaker has said, quote, "Our response will be crushing and smart." If you would, Pastor, give us a backstory to what's taking place, what has brought about brought us to this situation, and what is taking place as it relates to the senior officials in both Hezbollah and Hamas and their elimination.
Well, what we're seeing is a response by Iran, a response by Hezbollah, Hamas, even the Houthis getting involved in this regarding two major players in the Islamic world that were taken out. Iran was basically livid several days ago when one of their key head leaders of the Islamic world, military world, was literally assassinated in his hotel or in his room, place that he was staying in Iran. Horrible breach of security from Iran's standpoint. How did and of course there's been three different scenarios that have been given over the media. It appears as of just a few hours ago that it's, and I'll use the word confirmed loosely, that there were bombs that were placed inside of the bedroom of this leading individual, and somehow once he was in, supposedly went to sleep, 10 minutes later the bomb went off and killed him. Iran is livid. Ayatollah Khamenei is livid that this was allowed to take place in Iran. How did that bomb get in there? Who actually fired it off? So the first facts that we got several days ago before the weekend started was that they were trying to blame Israel for shooting a rocket in that particular room. Well, the bottom line is that was the first facts, and all of the rhetoric started from Iran. We're going to wipe out Israel. We're going to send several thousand rockets into there. It was just a horrible situation from the Iranian standpoint. So they wanted payback, and they wanted it big time. Well, after their investigation started in Iran, they found out that maybe their own people were involved in it. It appears that the Mossad, part of the intelligence community of Israel, may have been involved in it. And again, Israel isn't stating one way or the other whether they believe or whether they were involved or not. So bottom line is now we have this posturing by Iran, and they're changing the narrative as we speak. It changed today. From instead of saying we're going to send what was 1,500 missiles, 1,000 drones from Iran, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq, they've changed their narrative now to we're just going to make Israel wait. We're going to keep scaring them. We're going to keep their people on edge. And maybe if and when we attack, we'll see what happens. So the facts have changed. The rhetoric has changed. America, of course, is putting pressure on Israel, and they're putting pressure on Iran. One particular thing, which I'll close with my opening with this, Russian President Vladimir Putin, unbelievable. He puts out a statement this morning that he's telling Iran not to hurt civilians in Israel. That's an outstanding statement that made by Putin, who, of course, has killed numerous, tens of thousands of people in Ukraine, citizens. So it's just amazing. The political dynamic is really interesting right now. And quite frankly, we don't really know what's going to happen. All the rhetoric is out there, but what actually is going to happen remains unknown.
Now, I find it interesting that Israel is taking responsibility for Hezbollah's top military commander, Shukar. But not on Hananiah's death, who was the top leader of Hamas. So Israel seems ready to jump in and say, we're taking responsibility for this, but they're at least not speaking out if they were engaged in the other.
Right, and I think the biggest issue here, again, they're already in a war with Hezbollah, which is, of course, coming out of Syria and Lebanon. So that's a war that already exists. And this is my speculation. This is going to be a massive war if Iran decides to posture and Israel decides to posture against Iran, and they start firing rockets and aircraft or whatever else might take place. We're talking about what's going to morph into a potential third world war. which is why the United States is saying, please restrain yourselves, Iran and Israel. Putin, of all people, from Russia is saying, restrain yourself. If this blows up literally into a third world war, the amount of casualties, the amount of expense, the amount of damage is going to be astronomical.
We're talking with Dr. Richard Schmidt today from Prophecy Focus Ministries, and talking about Israel being on high alert at this point. The Daily Wire reported that both the Vice President Harris and President Biden, they were on a call to Israel's prime minister, stressing the importance of de-escalating the border tensions. Jihad Watch reported that the president privately demanded that the prime minister stop escalating the tensions, and that his most important thing right now should be a hostage deal, a ceasefire deal. David Milstein, he worked in the Trump administration for the UN ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, says it was a disgrace. He said it seems the Biden-Harris administration has a deliberate policy for Israel to be a punching bag for Iran and its terror proxies, where Israel is solely on the defensive. Plus, the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, illegitimately pressures Israel to stand down from proactively acting militarily to counter the security threats. Plus, the Biden-Harris administration imposes a partial arms embargo on Israel, denying the military assistance needed to fully protect Israel. Plus, the Biden-Harris administration gifts Israel's enemies over $100 billion in sanctions relief that rewards their finances, their escalating aggression against Israel. Daily Wire reported that President Biden actually threatened to cut Israel support if they don't back down.
All right, so what do we have here? We have a tremendous amount of politics taking place. This is an election year. We've got the never lose fact of what actually is taking place between the governments. Everybody is trying to get reelected right now or elected. So when we have the Biden-Harris team, which now, of course, is Harris and Walz's team, they're looking at what is it going to take to get their politics in place to where they're not losing the votes from Palestinians, they're not losing the votes from Israelis, and they're trying to kowtow to the liberals as well as the conservative, trying to, if you will, get votes. So, again, America has been pushing back on Israel doing what we would call a preemptive strike in Iran. Iran, of course, is scared to death that America or Israel is going to attack their nuclear plants. That is, I think, one of the major issues that's causing Iran to stand down, because it's been promised. Israel has said, listen, if you fire this massive amount of drones and rockets and missiles at Israel, we're coming, we're going to take out your nuclear facilities. And again, that goes right back to the difference between, if you will, the Republican and the Democrat side, where the Republican side was saying, listen, we want to kill this Iran deal. We want to kill the nuclear things. The Democratic side has said, Democrats have said, listen, we'll let Iran build their nuclear facilities. Israel's saying, we don't want nuclear facilities in Iran. And I believe that they're looking for an excuse to get into Iran and take those facilities out, and rightly so.
Well, friends, it is a powder keg, and we've used that term often, but it seems like we're closer than ever to an all-out war escalating in the Middle East, and of course, Israel is being told to de-escalate. I see House Speaker Mike Johnson calling on the Biden administration to immediately release all previously withheld and delayed weapons to Israel so it can defend herself and the people of Israel, and to deter Iran.
Right. And we did see yesterday a major carrier of weapons just came in, which is helping Israel. So there is progress being made. But again, when you're looking at, just think about this. What happened on April 4th, which was the last major attack by Iran against Israel, it was only, tongue-in-cheek, 320 weapons. We're looking at over 2,500 projectiles that are being threatened against Israel as we speak.
Friends, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with more discussion here on the topic of Israel on high alert. Dr. Richard Schmidt, our guest today on Crosstalk. Back in a minute on the VCY America Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what were the flying dinosaurs?
Chris, the flying reptiles like the pterodactyls were not really dinosaurs. By definition, dinosaurs walked on land with bones different from the flying reptiles, but they're often in the same discussion, usually as being huge reptiles from the great age of reptiles. Of course, I disagree with the term age of reptiles. I think all animals were created during creation week. Flying animals on day 5 and land animals on day 6. But, there's a lot of evidence that these flying reptiles lived at the same time as humans. Sober historians of yesteryear described such beasts and even drew pictures of them. And the American Indians even drew pictures of the thunderbird, and their drawings are similar to the pteranodon. Make no mistake, Chris, the evidence fits the back to Genesis truth of recent creation of all things.
Thanks, Dr. Morris. For more on creation, visit our website at www.icr.org.
Israel on high alert, our topic today here on Crosstalk, speaking with Dr. Richard Schmidt, pastor of Union Grove Baptist Church and founder of Prophecy Focus Ministries. Their website, prophecyfocus.org, prophecyfocus.org. Talking about all the escalations that have happened of recent, and last Wednesday night, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, gave an address, and he, in that address, said basically, we're prepared for any attack, saying this, quote, there are challenging days ahead of us. Since the attack in Beirut, threats have been heard from all sides. We are prepared for any scenario and will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a heavy price from any aggression against us on any front.
Well, again, we just have to applaud what Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, has done. He's taken an extremely strong stance to protect his people, the people of Israel, and he's got to put that type of a statement out. They're being threatened on all sides, as we used to commonly state, and I remember Dr. Jimmy DeYoung, who's in heaven now, he often stated Israel lives in a very tough neighborhood. Well, that neighborhood is not just tough, it's absolutely out of control right now, trying to wipe out Israel. And of course, we know from prophecy that God is going to protect Israel. It'll never be wiped out. However, God never stated there won't be some significant problems that Israel could face during these tough days. 1948, 1967, 1973, Israel had severe war issues. Is this going to be another one in 2024? Very well might be. And that's, again, why Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a very strong statement. You come after us, we are going to come after you. If he wouldn't have done that, it would show weakness, and he's not about to show weakness. You've got to show strength, same thing that America must do, which brings me to another issue of in Iraq, what recently just happened a couple days ago. Our Air Force, or our military base was attacked, and I haven't seen one thing about taking a stance from America on that. Benjamin Netanyahu isn't going to let an attack go unscathed. He's going to go after it, so I appreciate his position.
Now, you have said Israel will not be destroyed, but yet Israel is going to go through some very, very difficult days ahead. And speaking through the lens of Scripture here is what the Bible prophecy speaks of. Israel to this day does not recognize Jesus Christ as being Messiah, but that will change one day.
Absolutely. Well, there's 4 major covenants, which we won't go through them all once again, but very simply, God promised, and we'll just use one covenant, the Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 6 to 16. God made it very, very clear. It's an unconditional covenant. Israel may do wrong at times. They may not be following the Messiah, which they're certainly not at this time. But one day God has stated absolutely there will be, if you will, a national revival that will come out of the Great Tribulation, where 1/3 of the Jewish people, Zechariah chapter 13, verses 8 and 9, literally 1/3 of the Jewish people will be protected. They'll come out of the tribulation period. And according to Romans chapter 9 through 11, they will turn to Christ and they will serve the Messiah. So yes, today God has brought back in Ezekiel chapter 37 the Jews in unbelief. They're not serving the Messiah today. They've been brought back to Israel, though, just as God said that would happen. And one day after the 7-year tribulation period, indeed, the Jewish remnant will turn to Christ.
But again, tough times ahead for Israel, for the land will never be destroyed.
Absolutely. And it's problematic to many people. It's like, well, God's done with the Jewish people. No, God's not done with the Jewish people. Will they suffer for not serving the Messiah like they should? Yes, they're going to have these problems. God never promised them a perfect world during the church age time and the tribulation. In fact, let's be very honest. When I said 1/3 of the Jews will make it through the tribulation, Zechariah 13:8-9 make it very clear. And it's heartbreaking, but 2/3 of all Jewish people are going to die during the Holocaust, if you will. That's going to happen during the tribulation. 2/3 of the Jews. And again, back it up, Zechariah 13:8-9. It's heartbreaking, but yes, they will suffer.
Just today, 30 rockets were fired at northern Israel from Lebanon, 20 fired at Golan Heights, 10 at the Galilee Panhandle.
Well, again, this is unbelievable what's taking place right now. The wonderful news, of course, is for those that are pro-Israel, which if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you're going to be pro-Israel. What's taking place? Well, these rockets, of course, are being taken out. The missiles are being taken out by what we call the Iron Dome. It's just an amazing piece of technology, and of course, America is sunk tens and tens of millions of dollars into helping Israel protect itself through that Iron Dome, along with others. So, yes, 30 rockets. That's nothing compared to what if Iran makes good on their statements. Again, they're looking at over 1,500 missiles, 1,000 drones that they intend to place into Israeli territory. So that Iron Dome and other anti-ballistic type scenarios that Israel has, they're going to be put to the test.
And I've seen a propaganda piece being circulated as well on Iranian television. You see all these missile launchers lining up and from rockets fired from vehicles, all preparing for a battle. And I saw Israel National News reported over this past weekend that Iran began moving missile launchers and conducting military drills. Sure looks like they're preparing for attack.
Well, it does. And another thing which was interesting that the Iranian news put out is please do not take pictures and try and get them out to the media or out to any type of social networks, which, of course, in Iran, that's very limited to start with. So, yes, I mean, they're even admitting they're putting things in place. They're getting ready. When are they going to actually make the firing of these weapons? When is this incursion going to take place? Well, again, Ayatollah Khamenei made this very strong statement a couple of days ago. He is not going to attack until he knows all the players that were involved in the assassination of their leader in Iran. So how close they are to knowing who all the players are, we don't know. And again, when they finish their investigation, I believe that's when it's going to happen.
He is called the supreme leader. He is really the one calling the shots for Iran.
Absolutely. Well, as we've been saying ever since October 7th and before, when the massacre occurred in Israel by Hamas, that the head of the snake is Iran, and Ayatollah Khamenei is the head of that snake. So, yes, he's calling the shots. He's using all of his proxies, which is another word we often use on the air. What is a proxy? Well, we're talking about Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, other different Islamic groups that are following the Ayatollah's command, and that's why Israel is suffering the way it is.
So President Biden's been putting pressure on for a hostage deal, a ceasefire deal. Where do matters stand on that, or has this whole idea been thrown out the window?
Well, as of a couple of days ago, it's basically all the news outlets, all the mainstream media even are reporting it's all off the table. There is no hostage deal in play right now. The other very, very unfortunate thing, and those that are concerned about the hostages, which we should be, it appears that the majority of them are being reported as dead right now. Every day we're getting new reports of another individual that has died or at least whose body has been discovered and DNA has been done to prove their death. So it's very disturbing. If there are any hostages left, there's no documentation that exists right now to even prove they're alive.
I know at the same time, the Rafah incursion continues. More tunnels are being discovered. In Rafah, I understand Israel just found a tunnel stretching up to 10 feet in height, wide enough to allow a military truck to easily drive through. This was found in Rafah.
It's unbelievable what's been taking place. And, of course, one of the interesting things that you've brought up, not that far distant path, was Rafah. One of the key things why Israel wanted to get into Rafah, the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, is because it borders Egypt. And what's interesting about these tunnels is they're not just in, if you will, Gaza. There's major tunnels, major thoroughfares that were going into Egypt. Egypt had denied all this, and now, of course, this discovery of the tunnels is finding out, well, Egypt is involved, and they've been supplying weapons and so forth to Hamas. So, again, the entire Middle East is in an uproar. These tunnels are proving that there's still serious ballistic capabilities coming out of Hamas, coming out of Gaza, and this is by no means over yet.
I also saw in Israel National News, you mentioned Egypt here, and I see Egypt has announced that they're not going to take part in any defensive coalition in the event of an Iranian attack.
Well, isn't that interesting? Egypt has said that. Jordan has said the same thing. Saudi Arabia has said the same thing. Listen, if the Iranians send rockets into our airspace, we're not taking the chance it's going to destroy us or anyone else. We're going to take them out. So even among the Islamic communities, different countries, different areas are pulling different rank, if you will, as to whether they're going to allow Iran to shoot things through their airspace. So again, this is the thing that many people are saying. If indeed this major incursion takes place, this is where the Third World War concept could become a reality.
My Pastor Richard Schmidt with us today, and I see that Hamas is wasting no time in appointing a new leader to replace the one that was taken out, and one who currently serves as the head of Hamas's Shura Council. The reports Mohammed Ismail Darwish will replace him, but he's also known as Abu Omar Hassan. But no time at all. The Hamas is not going to rest. I mean, they're very firm in their conviction to take out Israel.
Right, and then not only has that taken place, but the leader, of course, in Iran has been replaced as well by a very strong known terrorist. The interesting thing is, and again, those that watch this in detail will find that Israel and the intelligence is just mind-boggling. The majority of all the Israeli leaders that were involved in the October 7th massacre, and they've all been eliminated. I mean, we're talking dozens of individuals that have been tracked down by Israel forces. They take them out one at a time. They literally find where they're sleeping, what car they're in, what motorcycle they're on, and they've taken them out. So becoming an individual that's a leader in Iran or Hezbollah or Hamas, quite frankly, it's a target, and their longevity is probably questionable.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, and we're opening our phone lines to take your calls, your questions that you have on current situation unfolding in Israel, even as it relates to Bible prophecy as well. Our phone number to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. 9829. We're talking today with Dr. Richard Schmidt, who is the founder of Prophecy Focus Ministries. Again, our number 800-733-9829. Just before our break, let me remind you that today is primary day in Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, and Washington. And friends, we know many of you listening in these states, and we encourage you to be informed on the issues and to cast a prayerful vote. More issues after the break here on Crosstalk, and we'll be taking your phone calls back in 1 minute here on the VCY America Network.
Romans chapter 1, verse 20.
For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
Yes, creation points to a creator. The book, Without Excuse, is a vibrant, hardcover devotional presenting evidence for creation by providing 365 different examples of how well science supports a biblical model for our origins. Topics range from biology to geology, genetics to botany, anatomy to history. Without Excuse has over 300 color illustrations and is written in a style appropriate to be read to young children, yet profoundly enjoyable for adults. Without Excuse. Available for a donation of $18 to VCY. Call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, and speaking with Dr. Richard Schmidt today. Pastor Rich is with Union Grove Baptist Church and founder of Prophecy Focus Ministries. Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Just before we do take the first calls coming in here today, a couple of other issues. The U.S. as well as the U.K. have urged its citizens to leave Lebanon, book any ticket available. These countries, United States, the United Kingdom, they also anticipate something very strongly escalating as well.
Well, again, Hezbollah, which is coming out of Lebanon, terrorist group, they've been backing up Hamas, if you will, by bombarding Israel from the north. Israel does not take that lightly. As soon as anyone from any rockets are fired from anywhere in Hezbollah, again, to the north, Israel immediately responds, and Israel has bombed many places in Lebanon already, and a lot of those are in populated areas, so it is escalating, and the war with Lebanon, even though it's not been officially called in many of the outlets a war, it's a war, and it's going to be bad, and there's going to be a lot of people in Lebanon, if they don't leave, they're going to end up dead.
We've seen a lot of headlines in recent days, too, about Israel striking a hospital compound, striking schools. What's this all about? Is Israel at its worst here, striking civilians, intentionally doing so?
Right, and I think it's good that we're talking about this, because one of the major things that, if you will, the pro-Palestinian groups are putting out there, the alleged genocides that are taking place in Gaza, what's happening is, and this is nothing new, this has been going on and on and on, that the Hamas terrorists are hiding in schools, they're hiding in hospitals, they're using, and they make no bones about it. They are firing missiles, even as recently as a couple of days ago, from schools and hospital areas. So again, just recently, 2 Gaza schools were hit, a hospital compound. This was reported just 2 days ago, and it resulted in 44 deaths, including some civilians and even children, which is, I totally agree. It's a horrible, horrible outcome. The problem is you're firing military-grade weapons at Israel from these places, which they're using human shields. So it's a deplorable work by Hamas and the terrorists. And unfortunately, when to protect the people of Israel, on occasion, these hospitals, these schools are hit, and it's terrible, and it's horrible, and nobody wants to see this type of thing. But we've got to understand, if your life is in danger and you're trying to protect the lives of the citizens of Israel, unfortunately, it's going to cause casualties when they use this type of cowardice-type cover.
Let's open the lines. Well, the lines are open, but we'll take our first call here. Joyce in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you so much. I bought your books. My question is, I believe and I pray for Israel. I'm a believer. You know, we're with them. We stand with them. My worry is what happens to the U.S. as we're sending our troops, our military, our ships, our planes, our defense is going to them. And we all know Hamas is here in the United States through those borders. What happens to us while they're there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that should concern every one of us when we're looking at the issue that there's somewhere between 8 and 18 million individuals that have crossed the borders, that have come into our country. We have no idea how many of those are actually terrorists. We know there's definitely a list that came out of 100 terrorists that have gotten through this week. So, yes, we are sending a significant amount of military power to the Middle East. Is that going to, in effect, if you will, take away from what we're doing? By the way, ships are not going to help us internally. That's not going to happen. The Air Force is not going to help us internally. We need soldiers, National Guard, others that have the capability to come in and help us here in America should that happen. And unfortunately, it will happen.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Let's go to Debbie next in Kentucky. Debbie, you're on the air.
Hello. Yes, I am definitely, for Israel and horrified, what happened when they went in. But one thing confuses me is with all the intelligence that Israel had, I don't understand how they could not have known that this was going to happen.
You're referring to last October 7th?
Yes,
Okay.
and October 7th.
Okay.
Yes, well, admittedly, and Israel admits that they had a tremendously bad breakdown in the security that particular day. Again, the total investigation, I don't believe, is done, and I don't think it will be done for quite some time. Was there the issue of alleged conspiracies and so forth have been certainly downplayed as not being the issue. Quite frankly, the military, and again, it was a holiday in Israel. The laxness, if you will, in security was there. They hadn't been attacked majorly since 1973. So they got lazy, and things happened that shouldn't have happened. The security was lazy. The information was lazy. And military leaders made serious mistakes. Intelligence knew about the plans to do this, but they didn't take it seriously. They thought everything was basically a front for what could happen, not realizing this was more than a gameplay. It was the actual execution of the plan. So tremendous breakdowns, and it'll remain to be seen in probably months, maybe even a year or two to come, before we get the actual facts.
Thank you, Debbie.
Right. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Our number to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829. We've got Brad next in West Dallas. Brad, you're on the air.
Hey, Brother Jim. Just want to address this thing about the Gaza Strip. It's been many years since they gave up that strip to the Palestinians, and they've gotten no peace for it, and all they've gotten from it is rocket launching. And then you got October 20 of 23, you got Iran attacking them directly as well as through Hezbollah and Hamas. I think it's a little late to call anything that Israel does from here on in preemptive. We shouldn't be telling them not to do preemptive strikes. They should just strike. While Iran is in the middle of blustering about the next attack they're going to pull on Israel, I want Israel to nail them. And nail them again and again just to get the message across. If they want this stuff to stop, they got to do that, or else make it expensive for Iran.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Well, Brad, again, what you're saying is certainly what the opinion is of probably a lot of folks. The unfortunate thing, and I think why it's not happening, is because, again, you're under world pressure. You're under the potential of a third world war. If indeed America strikes or Israel strikes, there's going to be pushback. There's pushback, and we have to look at the big global picture. Russia's going to get involved. China's going to get involved. The U.S. is going to get involved. We're looking at this isn't going to be just a simple, well, we took out Iran's nuclear facilities. When you're aligned with other world powers and looking at it from a global biblical perspective, we know one day Russia, Iran, many other different countries from Ezekiel 38 and 39 that are named, as well as China and the kings of the east from Revelation 16. indeed, there is going to be a world war coming. That is setting the stage. So something is going to happen that will set that off. But of course, those of us that look at it from a biblical perspective are trusting that that scenario is not going to take place until after the event known as the rapture of the church happens. Then indeed, all those prophetic scenarios will come to pass, pretty much like you've intimated.
Lines are available here at 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. I found it interesting. Earlier in our discussion, you talked about Vladimir Putin and how he's, saying really restraint. Watch out for civilians. But now you just mentioned that Russia is going to be one of those nations coming up against Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, many folks, and especially a lot of the listeners on VCY America, are familiar with Ezekiel 38 and 39. When we look at what's known as the Gog-Magog battle, which many prophecy teachers and churches have been talking about, we're not there yet. That battle is not in play, but certainly the stage is being set for that battle to take place. So, again, Russia will be the head of that coalition that aligns with Iran and other different places, Islamic nations that will rise up. So, yes, Russia is a major player. It's interesting that Putin is saying, well, we're not ready for that major incursion at this time. One day, that scenario will change.
Let's go next to Judy calling in from Kenosha. Judy, you're on the air.
Hi. My question to Pastor Rich is that what about the festival feast that's coming up for the Jewish people on the 12th and the 13th? 12th or 13th of August, and I pray that they don't let their guard down, again, and how are they going to manage doing that as well as, honoring their festivals. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Judy, well, you bring up an interesting point. Again, the Jewish people take their feasts, their festivals very seriously. They follow the Old Testament Jewish law. I think, though, that we're seeing a major change right now in the Israeli government, realizing that they cannot let their guard down even during Jewish feasts and so forth. Again, you're right on the money. In October 7th, that was part of the issue. They were asleep, if you will. They were enjoying a time of a festival, a feast, if you will, Jewish holiday. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has, if you will, gone against even some of the orthodox concepts of obeying the Sabbath during wartime. So I honestly, based on what we've seen, believe that they're not going to go to sleep this time, that they are going to stay active and alert, and they just can't afford not to be.
And we look what's happening just in the days ahead here as well. The Jewish Fall Feast are to take place. I'm looking here, Rosh Hashanah, October 2 through 4, Yom Kippur, October 11 and 12, Sukkot, the first days, October 16 through 18, Simchat Torah, October 23 through 25. Is Israel more vulnerable during this time?
In essence, we could say yes, but again, we've seen a change in the way Israel is operating. These are major feasts. The fall feasts are, this is to the Jewish people, the Orthodox Jewish people, many folks right here in Milwaukee that follow Orthodox Judaism. There are serious Sabbaths. There's, when we look at Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day of the year for the Jewish people. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of getting right with God. But again, understanding the tremendous peril that Israel is in, we have seen Israel take a different posture. Instead of standing down on the Sabbaths and basically following them, they realize that they're in a time of war. They can't afford that. So it's my personal opinion, but I don't think Israel is going to go to sleep during the festival times this year.
We're going up against a break. Mike, stay on the line. We'll take your call right after the break. And others as well. Our number to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Dr. Richard Schmidt is our guest. The website, prophecyfocus.org. Back in 1 minute here on Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. You need some hope today? The world seems to be on fire. The stock market's crashing. War is imminent in the Middle East. Venezuela is in violence. We also have the UK with massive violence, and that's just scratching the surface, not to mention Ukraine and Russia. Well, let me give you some hope, my friends. Revelation chapter 4 says, around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their heads. What is going on here? We've just come out of Revelation chapter 2 and 3, the letters to the churches. That's to you, church. That's to me. And what does the Lord say to them? He says in Revelation 2:10, I'll give you a crown of life. He says in Revelation 3:5, I'll give you white garments. Revelation 3:11, you'll get a crown. Revelation 3:18, buy from me gold, white garments. And then Revelation 3:21, you're going to end up sitting on my throne. And what do we see in Revelation 4:4? All those things. Thrones, white robes, crowns of gold. What's the point, folks? The Bible says the church is out of here before the tribulation. That's hope.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Pastor Richard Schmidt is with us today, and topic, Israel on high alert. We are going right back to the phone lines, and Mike, thank you for your patience. Houston, Texas, you are on the air.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi there.
Hi, sir. Yeah, so my question in regards to the Israel and, the world debacle at stand is, if so much money is being spent to defend of course, the special interest of Israel, what would it cost to actually retain the peace? In essence, if it costs us so much to help them defend, and we're at the brink of a potential world war with all the powers that be and the neighboring powers that be, geologically, in a pragmatic approach, it would be, more sensible to actually invest to promote the peace rather than to, keep exonerating on all the defense that has to be. Well, of course, that's in a perfect world, but America is spending a lot of money in foreign affairs, of course, to keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
But that peace seems to kind of fall back into defense contractors and special interest groups that are tied back into our own democracy.
Mike, let me ask you this: How can peace be achieved with somebody who wants to wipe your nation off the face of the earth?
Well, for the same reason, the peace is not being kept here. So how do we keep the peace here? I mean, I'm sorry to answer your question with another question, but it's ruled with the same thumb. It's in the sense of, yes, they're trying to wipe you out, but to what degree do you not also invest to the point of keeping peace for the sake of the rest of the world?
Okay.
So we're talking about, is there a potential of, hey, we have Iran trying to attack us, or the fact that we retaliate, this becomes a global situation,
okay,
not so much as a localized situation.
Thank you, Mike. We'll have discussion on this very issue. Pastor Schmidt, again, I was asking the question because these nations around have vowed to wipe Israel off. I don't know how you have peace. Israel has offered land and given land and at one time even a two-state solution, and everything has failed at this point. To Mike's question, how do you respond?
Well, it's an interesting scenario as to how would you invest in peace? Where would you spend your money to actually get peace? Well, the problem here is, just as you stated, Jim, that this is not a issue that's simplistic. It's not about trying to get more territory. It's not about a simplistic issue or who's going to run what. This is a religious war. Religious war. What does that mean? It means that the Islamic communities, the Islamic world wants, if you will, Allah to be the head of the world. They are going to do everything they can to wipe off the Christian nexus, the Jewish nexus. The Quran makes it very clear that we're considered as Jews or Christians infidels. And there's no money on earth, there's no peace treaty on earth that's going to, if you will, stop what they believe in from a religious standpoint. So again, this isn't a social issue where you can say, well, if we do so much money or when we invest so much money in a social program that all of a sudden it will stop the war. This will never stop until the Bible makes it very clear. Revelation chapter 20, the wars will continue until Jesus comes back. He's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and all the other religions, if you will, are done away with. So there's no way that you can buy peace.
Yeah, there is going to be a false peace coming from a false Messiah, the Antichrist. But beware. Jeff in Texas is calling. Hi, Jeff. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. I'd like to first make a comment. I appreciate Richard's moderating the Republican convention, and I guess VCY's hand in it, where they kept showing all the minor speakers, if you will. I really appreciated that opportunity to see it kind of unbiased, if you will.
Great.
I would like to sit there and question his thinking about Russia and China getting involved if this was to go global. While I believe China probably does have the resources, especially since they're not really in it at the moment with anybody else, with Russia's involvement in Ukraine, where they've been struggling so much, it seems, or at least that's what everybody's been feeding us, I would think that they might be hesitant to get involved if Iran or somebody else was to ask for it. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, again, I appreciate your commentary, your opinion on this. The thing that we know for certain, and when we go to the biblical nexus and when we look at what does Ezekiel 38 and 39 tells, it makes it very clear that Russia will be the major power, the major player. We also know that Russia, Iran, and China have done some joint military exercises. So there's no doubt about it that all three are, if you will, working together on this. So, again, it's really interesting. Why isn't Russia just taking care of, in their opinion, Ukraine and be done with it? I can't answer that question. I don't know if anybody can, but we do know that all three are major powers. They're all going to work together because Scripture makes it clear they're going to. So we'll just have to see how it plays out, but I really appreciate your thoughts.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Linda is next in Pasco, Washington. Linda, you're on the air. Hello, Linda. Linda. Okay, let's go to Lat in Racine, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, do you think, I want to ask Pastor Smith, do you think before, because I believe we're possibly could be going into Armageddon, World War III, do you believe the Antichrist will arise here before that happens and preach his false sense of peace? And I'll take my answer off the air. Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Armageddon will be the last event, if you will, of the 7-year tribulation period. Daniel 9:27 makes it clear the Antichrist will come on the scene. He actually will make a peace treaty with the Jewish people. Daniel 9:27. That is the event that starts the 7-year tribulation ticking. The end of the 7-year tribulation period actually will be the Battle of Armageddon, Revelation 19:11 and following, where Jesus Christ comes back. Basically, the Battle of Armageddon is the finality of all those that have opposed Christ, and he'll wipe them out at that time. Revelation 16:16 talks about it, and again, Revelation 19:11 to 21 specifically spells out how that will take place. So yes, the Battle of Armageddon is not next. It'll be the end of that 7-year period.
Amen. Thank you, friends, for calling in on the broadcast. Pastor Schmidt, thank you for joining us as well.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
And friends, continue. Be in prayer, folks. God's certainly at work. He sets up and takes down. And certainly, as Scripture says, we continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless you, friends. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.